All right, civil war has broken out inside the Republican Party just weeks after its triumphant election victory. Generally speaking, the issue is immigration, one of the top issues in the campaign. The populist MAGA base of the GOP wants it limited or eliminated. But Trump's billionaire allies, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, are pushing hard for those H-1B visas that allow tech companies and other employers to import foreign workers. So far, Trump seems to be siding with Team DOGE. Will this controversy tear apart Trump's fragile coalition before he even comes back to the Oval Office on January 20th? Joining us is friend of the show, my former co-host, Angie Wong.
Happy end of 2024. Nice to see you. And you know what? This is my last media hit for the year. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
It's like a reunion. No, this is great.
Yes.
No. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun way to usher out the last show of 2024. I got to say, 2024 has been a shit year for me all the way around. One, I'm still not on that Forbes billionaire list. I have a lot of work to do.
You do.
And like maybe I could start with getting employed in 2024.
That's a step in the right direction.
That's a step in the right direction, and get healthy. But like, here we are. It's the end of the year, and like, I'm not a party to this whole like MAGA thing. Everyone's asking me my opinion about this thing, this whole H-1B. Like, I can see both sides of this, Angie. Like, I don't, it's just not, I'm not, for whatever reason, other than the cultural aspect of it, I can see how the H-1B thing is like, you're really like dragging down wages in the same way illegal immigration and the people working at the farms, doing the shit jobs that many Americans don't want to do, but perhaps because it doesn't pay well, now it's like chicken or the egg. What are your thoughts on all of this? Explain for the people like me who are not really, we're kind of middle of the road. We're not quite MAGA, but we don't hate MAGA. Tell us what's going on.
Well, that's good. That's a nice move in the right direction. Look, this H-1B controversy, it was started basically to move our narrative away from some other story that they didn't want breaking. It's a non-issue. Look, we all support, and I'll say all for my end of the MAGA world, we support legal immigration, right? And if that's coming through an HB1 visa, so be it. When Trump gets into office, he could limit those numbers coming in if that's really the case. But I think we do need to create a legal pathway for legal immigration. That way people don't have to bum rush our borders every single day, right? If there was a real pathway of coming in, let's do it. And if we want to attract the most talented people around the world, let's do it, because we're going to need that to compete with the rest of the superpowers that's right behind us. And I think that is not a bad thing to have. Now, yeah, there's going to be some extremists, as always, who are going to be fighting for, no, America first. We're only hire Americans. Well, those are the same people saying, only buy from American-made stuff. I wish America can make all this stuff that we're always consuming on a daily basis. It's just not a reality that we have. And it's kind of like EV cars, right? You can't just put a mandate for 2030 for all cars to be, electronic vehicles. It's just not going to happen. You need to phase it in, and you need to build the infrastructure so that things can be America first. But unfortunately, you have a couple of dum-dums who think like, okay, the Trump switch is going to go on January 20th, and everything's going to be America first, and, out with the illegals and out with foreigners, basically, is what they're saying, right? It's not a reality.
I thought that too. I kind of viewed it that way, and I'm not from MAGA world, right? I kind of viewed it as like, well, we don't quite have the infrastructure. Like Ted and I were talking about this, I think when it broke out, on last Friday, Ted, or Thursday, something like that.
Yeah.
That I said, at least on the culture stuff, I totally get what Vivek was saying, right? That you know, like the Steve Urkel thing versus like the AC Slater and the, you know, the Zach Morris thing. I get that. Like in Asian culture, nerdism is revered, whereas like in American, and I'm not going to even say white. I'm not going to say white culture. I'm going to say American culture in general, because America is every color, every, you know, like I firmly believe that. American culture is like prom queen, like Vivek said, like, oh, be the beauty queen, be the prom queen, be the, you know, star quarterback or whatever. So I waded into that world. I can get that. But because our education system, the infrastructure has just gone to shit. Our culture is not there pushing kids to be STEM and be, you know, this or that or the other. Then I get why the H-1B thing has to still exist, and we have to kind of whittle it down.
Rate, but listen, I mean, that's a false narrative here. 4% of tech workers in the United States are unemployed, right? So, I mean, we don't need to import any, because we have plenty right here. And right now, by the way, there's a new poll that just came out, Rasmussen poll, just came out like this morning. It says that 6 out of 10 Americans are against any kind of H-1B expansion, and the voters they're violently opposed to it. 26% is the total who say that we should have more foreign workers. Most people are completely against it. Among Republicans, 72% says that the U.S. has enough talented people who can be trained and recruited for these jobs. 63% of swing voters agree, and 47% of Democrats also believe the same. So these H-1B visas are unpopular, especially among Republicans, but really among all Americans.
Yeah, and guess what? I mean, if we're talking about the tech world here and other industries, they don't have to be on American soil to actually operate, right?
True.
If you don't have to, you know, if you don't have to go through the hassle of H-1B visa and pay what is it, like $26,000 for the whole, you know, start to finish process of at least $26,000.
But they save a lot of money because they only pay them 60% as much as they pay Americans.
Okay, let's say all those things happen. Wouldn't it be just cheaper to open up a factory in India?
Absolutely.
Or open up, an offsite?
Sure.
So that's the reality of things. We want the talent here on the ground where they're paying taxes, contributing, and working their butts off,
and taking jobs away from Americans?
Well, you know, again, a lot of people see this as a pathway to a citizenship versus taking jobs away from people here. Now, until we fix a couple of things here, like our universities, like our education system, about, you know, like my son, he's not learning about space, right? He's not learning about engineering or maths. He's learning about George Floyd still in school. Oh, yeah. So until we fix that kind of stuff and make our own kids competitive in the next generation, you're not going to be producing that level of talent.
We have 4% unemployment though among tech workers. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and I think I'm not alone, if there's one person in the United States who's a U.S. citizen, who's unemployed or underemployed, who could be trained, they should be. And before we start looking overseas. Now, if we have a shortage of people, I'm all for it, like bringing new people in from outside. But why would we let Americans stay underemployed or unemployed while we're importing foreigners?
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of these job categories that Americans don't want. You know, remember we had a shortage of nurses for a long time?
Right.
And we were importing.
And like we always talk about, like the farm workers, right, Angie? Like these are the shit jobs that Americans just won't do. And I don't even know that if you offered them $20 an hour to pick bushels of strawberries that they would.
If you offered them 50, you would. They'd do it. Believe me, there's a number. Okay, there's a number that you can get. People, you can pay people.
And then what?
We're paying asbestos.
Then how much are we paying for a pound of strawberries, Ted? I can scarcely afford a pound of strawberries now.
Well, if people were being paid $50 an hour to pick strawberries, we'd probably all be getting paid more. So if strawberries cost more, it wouldn't matter because we'd all be making more money to pay for the strawberries. The whole scale of everything would just increase. That's all.
I love that we should be having this conversation right now, because I think the American workforce is going to take a turn. It has to. You have all these fractures coming in. You have AI coming in. Look, my job as a campaign worker may be obsolete by the next election cycle because I just punched into AI. Well, if I'm running a campaign, what do I need to do? And how can you do it for me? And there's going to be the next generation AI, which is going to be released very soon in 2025. It's going to be able to perform duties of, let's say, a webmaster, of social media
like
influencer.
lower end like tech stuff, right? Like
Correct.
like more entry level, what would have been entry level tech stuff 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Yeah, AI is going to
Angie,
start.
I got to
doing
ask
that.
about this conflict, though. I mean, we've seen what happens on the Democratic side when there's a civil war in the Democratic Party that's been actually raging for many years between the progressive left side of the party and the corporatist establishment side of the party, sort of the Bernie versus Hillary kind of
The
struggle.
progressive side just fucking
And
just lays down and takes it, Ted.
but well,
Just let's be
that
honest.
said, well, that's true in the Democratic side so far. But okay, but now you have this conflict. I mean, Donald Trump is between a rock and a hard place, right? And like Molly Ivan said, you dance with them that brung you. Well, the people who brought Donald Trump to the ball are the populist right? It's the America First MAGA people, and then Vivek and Elon are on the other side of that equation because they're globalists and corporatists who, they don't care really about the country. What they're just trying to do is make as much money as possible. So there's a conflict there, right? I mean, there's a fracture within the right. So, like, how does Donald Trump keep his coalition together? How does he keep both sides happy?
Oh, wow. Look, I love that question because you see it as a fracture and it's framed as a fracture. It may not be a fracture. I think the end goal really is to save America. And I know that sounds weird because you have two different approaches, right? You have someone who he's an immigrant himself to America, Elon Musk, right, and he worked his butt off to get to where he is. So he sees the accomplishments. Same with Vivek. At some point, whether him or his family moved to America and work their butts off to get to the point where he can even be. Right, where he can
was
even
also
be a
from a very
presidential
wealthy family
candidate.
too.
Like his mom was like a doctor, dad, or one of them was a doctor or something like that, and the other one was like a business person anyway. So he came from Vivek came from money already, like not great wealth, but
and Elon
very
came from
well-to-do.
filthy like apartheid money. I mean,
Elon came from wealth also. And Andrew, you're not seeing this because you're audio only, but on the screen I have Elon's tweet posted, and he changed his handle on Twitter, on X, to be Kekius Maximus, and put the Pepe Frog in a the Pepe Frog face with it wearing like a Roman soldier, armor.
Right.
And he says, this is the tweet that got him, that's just setting off the war, he says, the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H1B. Take a big step back and fuck yourself in the face.
Love it.
I
will
go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend.
Yeah, but does Donald Trump want that war?
Well, hold on. Now, hold on, Angie. Hold that thought, because I want to do some Donald Trump on the stump. Just listen to this audio for 1 minute. Donald Trump on the stump versus Donald Trump the other day, who sounds like he's kissing the ring of his second biggest financial backer behind Miriam Adelson, which is Elon Musk. So this is going to take about 1 minute. So have a listen. Hold on. Here's Trump.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and that's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say Well, I'm a businessman and I have to do what I have to do. And it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers and it's unfair for our workers and we should end it.
A few moments later.
And what I will do is you graduate from a college. I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here.
You know, I guess it's kind of like that Captain America Civil War movie, right?
All right. So you guys heard that there,
Yep.
right? Donald Trump just literally a couple of years ago saying H-1B is bad. I'm going to end it if I get back into office. And now he's coming back to office. And he's like, now he's tweeting or truthing or whatever. He's like, I've used it. Used it for what? You don't own a tech company. Well, I guess he owns Truth. So maybe, I don't know.
He does use it. He used it for his properties. I'm sure.
I heard he was using H-2B visas for that. That's a different, like, unskilled kind of thing.
Look, these things exist for a reason. Have they been abused? Probably. Have other
100%.
industries, right? Have certain industries overused it? Yes. But again, quotas, guys. I'm not for killing these programs. I think they're good for America. I think there are a lot of things that we just are not very good at, right?
I
For
don't see how
example-
they're good for America. I mean, how are they good for American workers? I mean, I don't get it. Like,
I think
if you're sitting at
it's-
home in your house unemployed, you know,
Well, I think that's in some ways I look at it more like a teaching experience. So, for example, like semiconductors. We're not experts in semiconductors, but if we brought in a couple of people from Taiwan who've been doing this for 30, 40 American workers, then that's not a bad thing, is it? Right? So, I mean, I see there's benefits to it. I think it has been abused. I think certain industries only use it. And certainly the financial industry loves this, right? But remember, if there is a cost penalty to hiring foreign workers, companies may go back and say, hey, that may not work for me, right? I'll give you a story. I brought in a foreign worker, and she was just my nanny for 1 year. I went through the whole HB1 visa process. I think it was HB1. And I paid her wages that were American wages. That was part of the program. It's not like you get to skimp out on wages. You have to still pay, whatever
Right.
the, whatever that tax year is. She was happy. She went home after 1 year and bought a house in the Philippines. She loved it and took care of her family. She's now in real estate. I mean, the whole thing. So I feel pretty good about it. But I do think maybe there's some reform that can happen. For example, maybe after 5 years, you have to go back. I don't know. Whatever it may be. I think there's
well, they
there's
have to
some
go
sort-
back if they lose their job. They have to go. They're basically indentured servants.
Yeah, that's how Americans see it. And I can see that because they don't have the rights of Americans.
That's how they see it when you talk to them. But like, I mean, how would you feel personally? I mean, about a provision that shows that, like, if a company if they have an opening, they have to prove that they have reached out all over the country to unemployed people who could be trained, and that they've been turned down by everybody, and only then can they look overseas.
There are provisions like that already. In order
They
to
just certify it. They just say well, we tried, but
we
they don't have
did
to
it.
prove. They don't have to prove it.
Well, they do. They kind of have to. That's why monster.com and all these job sites are so prevalent, right? Is because they post all over the place. Now, do they go and they interview everyone and reject everyone? Yeah, I mean, people play the system, of course. But again, if you make it so impossible for them to come in, but at the same time not close the pathway altogether, maybe that will limit them. So we also have the EB1 visa, right? Where if a company or an individual brings in a crazy amount of money to the US and hires up to 10 people or more Americans, then they have a natural pathway to citizenship, right? So all these things exist. I think they were with good intentions. Maybe they've been gamed a little bit too much. And that's why these conversations are happening. But you have to remember, we have to look at the future of job fair here in America. AI literally is taking over all of this stuff. I mean, I'm
That's true.
talking right. So
Well,
what?
Elon Musk had brought up the idea. So of course, you guys know what the universal basic income idea is, that like Andrew Yang had brought up, that every American would get $12,000 a year, there or about, kind of like the way that Alaskans got I don't know if they still get that. I think they still do, the oil pipeline money. You just get money just for living in Alaska. But Elon Musk
Yeah,
had this
Emiratis
idea
are like that.
about AI called, and their plan, and the Kazakhs are like that too now that they have oil. But anyway, Elon had this idea that he mentioned like a year ago, called a universal high income. In other words, it's not like 10 grand, sort of like a subsidy, not enough to live on, but actually you pay people a full salary, like a beyond living wage, like a generous wage, just to not work, in order to keep
To exist?
just to keep society stable and to prevent us from becoming India, just so you pay people to sit at home and not start a revolution and string up all the billionaires from lampposts.
Okay. And so what happens to the American spirit? What happens to motivation and drive
Right.
and ambition and all those things?
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
not
to sit at
sure.
home
I
and stare at the
think
wall.
people would. I think there are a lot of people who are. That's going to exist, right? I mean, there are people who are going to not want to do that, right? There are people who
I
are
don't
like, I want to start my own business.
I don't know. I
That's
don't know.
That's
because
psychology.
my grandparents came here with like $20, right?
Yeah,
And
mine too.
the only way they could eat is to work their butts off.
Bust your ass and go do something.
If you told me that, well, Ted Rall, you can earn $150,000 sitting on your butt watching Netflix all day, or $150,000 talking to you guys on the air, I would take this. This is more fun.
Yeah, of course, but that's you. Like that's the thing that I was talking with you and producer Robbie about, is how there is 100% a subset of human beings here in the US that would absolutely fucking exploit any program to get a free dime, like when they are able-bodied and willing to. So yeah, like I'm a big fan of meritocracy myself, and
but if they don't, if AI means that we don't need as many workers, well then what's your solution? I mean, you just want to let people starve?
Hold on, we're shifting conversation. Like, this is not a fucking UBI conversation, because honestly, like, there's like, we're talking about MAGA civil war here, and like the question
we've been
is
dancing around that, right?
What happens to MAGA
who's
world?
Gonna win? And who's gonna
like
win?
if like look, you can't see this, Angie, on screen. I actually have you do? Okay. So I have it's an Indian newscast that's showing that of the H-1B visas in the US, more than 70% of them go to Indians, and then less than 12% go to Chinese, and then probably random other around the world. So this is probably why we're seeing like the whole conversation become racist against Indians themselves. And
okay, and I'll give you some insider facts about this. Well, Modi's people have been all over Mar-a-Lago for the last few months. They're tossing money left, right, and center. There's a reason why all this is happening, why it's in the news, right? Because they want India to look. India is going to be one of, when we talk about global conflicts here, it's there. It's right there next to China. China's building bricks. All this stuff is happening all in that region. Now, India becoming a big ally of the US is going to be very, very beneficial to us. Now, what do they want to exchange? For some reason, HB1 visas, H-1B visas, and all these other, ask. And that's what any country coming, to the next president is going to have. They're going to have asks. And again, this is what's been happening for decades. Now, you asked me about MAGA and the conflict here. Who's going to win? Well, who's the war between? Is it between Elon Musk and Laura Loomer, who are fighting this issue out online? Like, who's it really? Ultimately, I think
there's
like the purists, like I would say Laura Loomer probably considers herself like a MAGA purist, like pure MAGA. And then you have like Elon and Vivek, who are obviously, very wealthy people who have a vested interest in, deviating slightly off the purist route.
Yeah. Okay. So Trump's already he's already made, several posts siding with Elon Musk and Vivek, right? He said, H-1B visas are here to stay. I use them in my properties. He's not going to kill that idea. Now, Laura Loomer, she makes her living based on being an extremist, right? Whether or not she even, she's an angry person because as an online personality, because it makes her money. Right?
When clicks, yes.
Yeah, when you meet her on the street, she's like a nice normal person. Like she's just like
really?
Yeah, she's not totally, a lot of this is for play. We know this, and we're all in media, so we put
Ann
up a
Coulter
personality.
is like that. In reality, she's like really painfully shy and a scaredy cat.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
I tried to
you can
talk
have
to
a
her. She
beer.
ran away from me. I think she thought I was going to attack her. I wanted to
weird.
pitch her a
Weird.
show.
But we're all like
Weird.
that a little bit. But she makes her money by being extremist. They, as we've learned from various reports, most recently, she gets paid by a social media company to do that kind of extreme right.
To be a provocateur.
Yes.
Hmm.
And and she echoes the message. It's not real.
It's
Trump's putting a clamp to this. And you know what? Susie Wiles came out yesterday and said, all right, anyone who's being nominated to be a cabinet member, you put down your phone, no more social media tweets until January 20th.
I mean, I guess the question is, so Angie, your point's well taken, right? I mean, there's a lot of theater here, as always.
Yes.
And you're very good at pointing that out. I guess the question here is this something that rank and file Republican Trump supporters are going to look at, let's say after January 20th, and if they start to conclude that Trump broke his promise to control the border and cut back immigration and all that, and that the H-1B visas are an example of him breaking that promise, will they notice? Will they care? I guess is the question. In other words, will it really have an effect? Or will this just be like they'll shrug their shoulders and sort of like the progressive Democrats, they'll just like, oh well, and they'll live with it.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm gonna roll it back a little bit. This riff between Musk and using H-1B visas as a vehicle, basically to not only change the topic, but to create, to make Trump into this absolutism. It's actually, I think Trump's going to try to roll this back. He is not going to let this become an issue because this is about fracturing Elon Musk and moving Elon Musk away from their BFF relationship, right? You have a lot of jealous people who've worked for Trump over the years who do not have the same access to Trump they once had that Elon Musk has now. They text each other all day long, right? Elon Musk took the cottage at Mar-a-Lago for $2,000 a night.
Yep.
Yes, they're like buddies. They're like living
They're
together.
like bosom buddies, like roommates.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
what?
Yeah. So look, you have people from
Maybe
the
they spoon at
2016. Oh, stop.
Super weird.
Okay.
So weird. So weird.
Whatever they do, I don't care. I mean, if they're having a whiskey upstairs, that's great for them. Look, what has happened is you have people who've worked for Trump over the last 3 elections, and they have lost access to Trump's ear. And that's the reality. I've seen people sidelined, and I was like, okay, thank you very much. You got me into the office. Bye.
Right.
And that's who's causing these fractures that we're seeing right now. And
yeah,
now
because there's like a finite amount of space in Trump's, sphere of influence, right? And that and Elon is probably taking up the lion's share. So
but also you have to remember that Trump has to stay out of trouble for the next 21 days, right? He's got to just stay as clean as possible. So Elon Musk and Vivek, I believe that they're just surrogates for Trump. Trump is telling them, okay, can you put this out as a tweet? Because he can't say it himself at least not until he gets into office, until he gets the keys to 1600, right? He has to stay out of trouble. So I think these are directives coming from Trump. But again, people who, I mean, it's sad. If you go to the Trump's golf course in Palm Beach, there are very, very prominent politicians, lifetimers sitting in the lobby of the golf course, waiting for Trump to walk in through the doors just so they can ambush him and say, "Can I have a job, please?" I mean, they're like fully suited up. They've got their resume in their hand, and
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
and like these guys have been politicians for like 4 decades, and they can't get access to Trump. So that's what this is about. That's the behind the scenes on this. And Elon, look, he literally has the future in the palm of his hands. He
That's
has
crazy.
algorithms and all the metadata and the microdata that can predict things before they happen. We know this because he's bragged about it, right?
Right.
So he's able to see all the fractures and see what people are actually doing. Is H-1B actually an issue that Americans care about? No. But why is this fraction of MAGA turning it into an issue? So Ted, I'm answering your question by saying a lot of these narratives are manufactured, right? They don't exist.
Okay.
It's not like me, MAGA girl, really cares about H-1B visas. And I'm saying so online. I'm like, I welcome anyone who comes in here legally. I don't mind. But, you know, there's a fracture who wants to flip Elon Musk because they know Elon and Vivek, they rely on these visas to run their companies. So that's kind of the insider scoop that I think I can give you.
So, Angie, your read on it is like kind of, you think this is like kind of like a media born or media spun, social media that is, spun narrative that's like meant to be a wedge between like into Trump world to kind of mess it up before Trump even gets into office?
There are reports that confirm what I'm saying, right? Right. So there is essentially Democrats do this all the time. They get something called I think it's called the morning sheet, or maybe it's just called the morning tip sheet. That used to happen back in the day, but
they're
now
talking points.
Right.
Yeah.
So Republicans have that now too, but it's on a much smaller scale. And they give it out at 4 a.m. every morning to a bunch of influencers, right? So they get their morning call, and each influencer gets paid X amount for posting this stuff. And they were caught over Christmas.
And some of them are shit posts on purpose.
Yes, some of them are shit posts, but the idea is to, you know, gain the momentum. So H-1B visas was on this call list as one of the things that they wanted all these influencers who are getting paid to play to put out there. Now, that's a manufactured drama, right?
Right.
Now, why they were doing it or who was making the calls, we don't really know yet. But it was manufactured. And my assessment of that is it was manufactured to put trouble in Trump world and wedge between, you know, the tech bros living with Trump right now.
So weird. There's tech bros living. And by the way, I knew Elon was tall. Like, I'm looking at this video. I didn't know he was that tall because Trump is tall.
Yeah.
And Elon's even taller than him. I didn't know Elon was that tall.
It must be all the South African dairy, right?
He looks taller because he looks thinner now that he's lost weight.
Is that what it is? But look,
Yeah,
like
he was like portly before.
Like Trump's what, 6'3" or something like that?
Depends on who you talk to. 6'2" or 6'3".
No comment.
He's probably shrinking a little bit, right? Because
he's old, but he's definitely like over 6'2". I've been in the same room as Trump, not close, but
I think he's 6'2". I think he's exactly 6'1" or 6'2". Yeah.
And Elon, I've seen him in passing at the Detroit Auto Show. He didn't stop to talk to me. I tried. But I remember thinking he was tall, but I didn't know he was that tall. So he's got the new hair, new height, the new Ozempic bod.
Yep.
He's getting ready for inauguration, man.
He really is. He's looking forward to being, you know, co-president or whatever they're calling.
Doge, yeah. Doge, whatever he's going to be.
Doge
Doge czar.
Look, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we should be welcoming this guy. I mean, he's a pretty smart genius type, right?
How long is that going to last, right? I mean,
I
everyone's
know,
kind of
I
waiting
know.
for the bromance to
Well,
break up. It's like Brangelina. They're on the way out. This is
Look,
not
Oh
good.
God.
This is like at the wedding where you're like, these two aren't going to make it. You know.
Well, Angie wasn't here for my earlier description of how Brangelina happened with the whole face lick and crotch grab. Who's grabbing whose crotch here?
Oh, very clearly,
Whoa, okay. Well,
Elon's doing the grabbing here.
Hmm.
I
Who's
look.
Angelina?
In politics, everyone's transactional, right? If you can provide something, you're in use. If you're completely useless, you're sidelined. And that, so Elon has his use right now. He's got a lot of cleaning up to do. There's a lot of government inefficiencies that needs to get tossed. And he'll do his job, and maybe he'll go back to SpaceX and all the other great things he's producing. So I think it's a welcome thing. I mean, he's an actual doer. Yeah, he's a little bit grandiose, and he's not he's not the details guy, but we need someone to kick America's butt to get things done, and he doesn't care. You know why? Because he's got all the money in the world. So he's
literally.
doing it for hopefully the right reasons. It's not for the money. It's not for the fame. It's because he can. And there's not too many people who can do this type of work without being compromised in the political world. So I love it.
African oligarch.
All right. Well, okay.
South African oligarch there.
Look, sometimes it just takes a very special person just to get us started, and then we're there. Trump's not even in office yet, and all this stuff is already happening, right? So
that's because Joe Biden, he's literally on vacation in St. Croix and like nowhere to be found. So like I don't know, the Oval Office is set on autopilot right now, and who knows who's running what. So everybody's paying attention to what's happening with Trump, unlike ever before. Like we thought the attention was paid to incoming Trump in 2016-17. This is like ultra under the microscope. Everything, every move that Trump world makes, including the random people on social media. I mean, I'm not talking just about like Laura Loomer and the ones, with big accounts. Literally just random ass people that are consider themselves MAGA are starting to give brands and names to themselves over this, and mainstream media is paying attention to all of it, literally down to the average Joe MAGA person, because you have people like Neera Tanden like getting into fucking fights with them on Twitter, like random people. Where you're like, oh my God, what world am I living in?
Well,
get me out of here.
Get out of the Matrix.
Get me out of here. I hate this.
No, and you have to remember, so much of it is manufactured. I have to remind myself every day whenever I see a new story of the day. It's like, is this actually real? Look, I don't believe for a second that Joe Biden is just sitting in St. Croix drinking out of a coconut. All right. I don't think that's no. He does this intentionally. He goes on holidays all the time. So there's no, White House log, right? He meets with people.
Oh.
Things are happening, guys. I mean, the same way, Trump is going to take a lot of meetings at Mar-a-Lago.
Biden's brain checked out 4 years ago.
Right.
Before he got inaugurated. So,
meetings
whoever's meeting him,
yeah,
they're set. Whoever's meeting him in St. Croix is talking to the coconut, not Biden.
Well, just know things are happening, and what's scary is that we're not reporting on what is happening with the president, because we don't know what he's setting forward. We don't know what Trump's going to be inheriting. We don't know what the first quarter of 2025 is going to look like. It's frightening.
Good point. I'm scared. I'm scared for 2025. Not, just everything, not just the Trump thing and the Elon thing. It's just, oh boy, buckle up, Angie.
Oh yeah,
buckle up. Happy New Year.
I know. I mean, look, we should talk about what trends we think will happen in 2025 because it's a great honeymoon period right now. It's like right before the marriage. We're gonna go like right before the wedding on the 20th, but things are gonna happen, and we better be able to pivot. We better understand what's really going on because so much of it is going to be okay, whatever we manufacture, and that's what Elon Musk is really good at. He can make certain topics the news of the day.
Yes.
Now,
he moves markets.
right. Think about that. That's really why he bought Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And if
I'm
he's
sure.
able to shape this, it could be for the good or it could be for the bad. It could be, look, a lot of, I don't know if you know what's happening with American banks right now. And and Ted, maybe this happens all the time towards the end of the year. They are cutting jobs like crazy right now. There are teams where they have to slice by 25%. And I don't know if that's typical or not typical of an American bank, but
It is layoff time.
It is layoff time, right?
Yeah, that is typical. The numbers are bigger than usual.
Yes.
There's a general sense that we're heading into a recession, maybe worse next year, and there's a lot. I mean, the real estate market is completely both frozen and a bubble, which is the worst possible combination.
Yeah.
Interest rates are the Fed just can't figure out what to do in terms of getting the right mix on interest rates, and there's sort of an 18-year cycle that we're kind of due for a recession. So, and I think there's sort of a malaise that's setting in Jimmy Carter's honor.
I was gonna say that's a Jimmy Carter word.
Yeah, although he never said it, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wrote it. No?
He never said it. He didn't say it in the speech. It was called the malaise speech, but he never said malaise. Yeah. Famously.
Well, all these things scare me. And what better to kind of offset a recession would be, well, you don't promote the fear, right? Because that's when it spirals.
Right.
So I
true.
think, and I wonder if, I'm sure Elon's very well tuned to all this. I wonder if this is kind of like a test drive to what he may or may not have to do when all this comes tumbling down, because we all see it. They certainly see it. The markets are going to adjust, and we're going to find out some real job numbers come quarter one, quarter two. I mean, right now, it's I'm no economist, but the numbers that are coming out are highly inflated, right? For job numbers that we've seen in the past few quarters. I think the real numbers are going to be it's going to be a real shocker, because they included a lot of the part-time jobs, a lot of, I'm sorry to say, the illegals taking jobs, a lot of like the
No, it's just in general, all these fake numbers from BLS. There was a story about this like 3 months ago, I think, about the Biden BLS, about they literally just completely faked numbers. Like they just overinflated numbers. Like everything is a lie, basically, the last 4 years that came out of BLS.
Yeah.
And
that was
Bureau of Labor Statistics for people who don't know.
So like there's going to be some realities that we're going to have to face. They're going to blame it on Trump, of course, but managing the PR on that is going to be critical to American lives, because if we all believe we're in recession, guess what we're going to do? We're going to not buy anything.
That's
we're
true.
going to we're going to maybe work harder, I don't know. We're going to do all it's all psychological. So I think Elon Musk understanding that and putting a tamp on certain things, even if that means it sounds like silencing, the fear mongers, I don't know if that's a terrible thing either. And I hate saying that because obviously we enjoy free speech, but there's so much shenanigans. If one super PAC can control over 50 influencers on the social media platforms, well, they can do a lot of harm, right? And that's one voice being echoed out to millions of people. And there's a lot of things at play here that we're just understanding now. Trump and Elon gets it. But I honestly believe these two guys, as much as they love making money, there's something else driving them. there's authenticity in them, and I say that just following them. I don't know for sure, but there is something authentic about them versus just being here to screw over people, make money, like government as usual. It's not like that with these guys. So I think that's what Americans voted for. Let's give them a shot. They're obviously going to hit a lot of turmoil in the first two quarters, and I pray for them.
I pray for all of us, Angie, in 2025.
Yes.
Good God.
Indeed.
Well, with that, we'll let you go right there. I know you're traveling and doing stuff right now for the new year. I look forward to Ted and I both. I'm sure we all look forward to seeing you and hearing you again
Definitely.
in the new year very soon. And this is all I can say is buckle up, right, Angie? And Angie, you're on the ground in Florida, so buckle up.
Well, let's
is the
see.
term.
No, we're all in this together, and you know what? I'm so happy that you have this new show because again, this is what's going to be reporting the real news, not some of the fakery we've been seeing over the last few years. So keep it up, you guys. Thank you.
From mainstream, oh my God, like everybody knows that now. If you want real stuff, real conversation, and real actual, like hearing it from people, like the dog's mouth, hearing it from the horse's mouth, or people that are eyewitnesses to things, you're not going to hear it from mainstream media.
No,
that's where you get like all the CIA fakery that's literally up, like people that were former CIA, not only hacks, but like whole ass like former leaders of the CIA to
I know.
give talking like really we're supposed to believe them?
Yep.
No. Like come on. No.
Not anymore.
I don't want to believe James Clapper. No, because his career was to lie to us and to lie to the world. So no, I'm not going to believe James Clapper. But that's mainstream media. Anyway, whole different conversation.
Yep, absolutely. No, I love it all. I love the gamemanship of the whole thing. I love that you guys dissect it. I'm sure, look, I'm sure we're going to be deplatformed at least once next year. Right?
I already got deplatformed from YouTube.
Oh,
YouTube like nuked my entire account. I can't even, they're not, well,
wow.
they I had to like make a new one. And if me saying this, like their algorithm is probably going to figure it out. So like I had to make a new YouTube account for my son. But yeah, my Manila Chan YouTube, my account got completely nuked without explanation. Like my account, not just the channel, the account. So I'm done with 2024. I know 2025 is going to be wild, but for me, in my opinion, it can't be worse than the Biden years, and it can't be worse than 2024. So God bless. Happy New Year, Angie.
Happy New Year.
We will see you in 2025. Thank you so much for carving out time for us.
Happy New Year, Angie.
All right. Bye, guys. Happy New Year. See you in
Bye.
2025.
Bye, Angie.
Bye.
Thank you.